later give you all enough time to join. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of today's session, I do want to talk with you a little bit about WordStream. So WordStream is an SMB and agency's best friend when it comes to managing your AdWords, Bing, Facebook, and display. We help you drive your leads cheaper, faster, better, whether it's helping you to do it yourself with our platform, whether you're doing it with us, with part of our Premier Consulting team, or whether you're entrusting your account to us to manage and fully own to drive those successful leads. We are your champion to help you achieve the best ROI possible. And a lot of the studies, a lot of the conversations that we're going to talk about today actually come from real WordStream customers leveraging the WordStream platform. So now that we've talked about WordStream, here's a little bit about the context of the webinar. We are going to record it, and so you should check that inbox for materials, and we have the Q&A being monitored. At the end, we'll have a full Q&A. If you have a burning question off the bat, would love to hear that. But then, of course, as we talk, if there are questions that come up, please submit them through that questions form. Now, I actually have a question for you. And so we're going to launch that poll. What ad networks are you currently advertising on? Are you advertising on AdWords, on display, on Bing, on Facebook, on none, on all? Love to hear from you. So we'll let that poll be up and we'll monitor the results. Cool. So it looks like most of you have voted. And I am actually very excited because it looks like we have, as expected, AdWords is the leader. 77% of you are advertising on AdWords already. Great job. Really excited also to see such a strong presence of Facebook. Social and search are really partners in crime here. When we're having Valentine's Day, like you want to have that sweet couple. Also excited to see some Bing in here. We're looking at 28%. Also very excited to see that 40% of you are leveraging display already. So really good healthy mix. Not surprised that search is the winner. It's kind of going to be a theme we'll revisit later in the webinar, but this has definitely been helpful for me so that we can provide the most helpful session for you. Now getting into a little bit about what we'll be talking about today. This is me and my husband, Dave. We actually, funny story, started dating on Valentine's Day, so I couldn't resist including him in today's session. We're going to be reviewing budgets by network, how to make the most of your budget, and those signals of growth that will cue you in that it is time to start growing that budget, as well as some case studies of clients of mine I've worked with to help them actually achieve these goals. A little bit about me. I've worked across the entire book of, or I do work across the entire book of business here at WordStream. I started working in WordStream in 2014, started working in digital marketing in 2008, and I call my husband my lovely. We are very nerdy people. A common date night for us is actually to see like the Avengers or Deadpool, and you cannot believe how amazing it was when I saw that Ryan Reynolds was asked the best question of all. Which ad network is better? He was actually asked which Chris is hotter, Hemsworth, Pratt, or Evans. You'll notice that Chris Pine was left out, and don't worry, Deadpool did, or i.e. Ryan Reynolds, did come through. But this is a really important question because a lot of people do think about ad networks in silos. And the key to winning with low budget is to understand how each ad network works and to make the most of them. So we're going to go on a dating game with our ad networks. Let's start with Alpha AdWords, Mr. Chris Hemsworth. He's really smart, he's really rich, he's really powerful, and they are the trendsetters. So when search AdWords does something, that is going to dictate the landscape for most other ad networks, and most advertisers will follow that. They tend to overfixate on little things, like they're perfectionists. They need everything to be just right, otherwise you get those disapprovals very on point. but they only are going to really date power players. Like they want you to be confident and powerful and kind of put your money where your mouth is. Next, we meet Dreamy Display. Sometimes gets roped into things that may or may not be quite right, but they do genuinely try to create value. And there are some experimental things that happen with display that sometimes are useful, sometimes are not. And they do invest a lot into special effects. So there's a lot of really interesting things that happen with display. Google or WordStream, as a premier partner of Google's, does get early access to certain betas. I'm happy to answer some questions there in the Q&A. And Bashful Bing sometimes gets overlooked. It's a little bit nerdy. I don't know if any of you heard, Chris Evans actually did this really fun story of surprising folks in Boston, kind of hid in the back room of a comic book shop that likes to do lots of really like nerdy things. But is actually a really powerful network. And in terms of visual effects, in terms of structure, in terms of those that, like how you actually set up your Bing, if you treat it right, it actually can drive a lot of profit. And then we have Facebook, super laid back and down to party with whoever and whenever, but does struggle to reconnect that retro payment with forward-thinking design. Facebook is going to charge you on that CPM or cost per milli or cost per thousand model. And sometimes does get in trouble for being so open. And Facebook is quietly loaded, but doesn't always get taken as seriously. And so when we think about all of these networks, it is troubling that in the old days, advertising was a monogamous relationship. And if you remember back to the poll and how the lion's share of you, and this is, to be fair, the lion's share of most advertisers, we're in a monogamous relationship with AdWords. But the thing is, AdWords can get expensive. And if you start racking up a lot of expensive clicks, or when you go out with a power player and they only want to go to the best clubs, it does start to add up. And so there had to be a solution, right? So it's important to bear in mind that before you think of any way of structure, you do want to think about the auction price for each network. So with AdWords, you really do want to allow for at least $750 a month. Display is a little bit more reasonable. So you can get away typically closer to like that $500 mark, but you still do want to allow for that budget. Bing requires at least $450. A lot of people will actually underbid or under budget for Bing, like they'll treat it give it even less. It's important to remember that when you have a budget and bid, the more data you can acquire in the beginning, the more cost effective your campaigns will be later. And then finally, with Facebook, you can get by on $250 a month, but it is highly, highly dependent on the initiative. And again, whenever the more your budget is on the smaller side, the more levers you'll have to pull, the more time you'll have to invest. But this is a good benchmark to kind of orient ourselves around, because when we think about industry, when we think about B2B or business to business or B2C, business to consumer, it can feel like, well, what am I doing? I have to just put it all on AdWords. The answer is you don't. So no one network should get all of your budget. We're going to shed those confines of budget monogamy, and we're going to have our ad networks assemble. We're first going to make our budget work on AdWords. And I have some more questions for you. How much do you make when a prospect becomes a customer? Do you make $5? Do you make $500? Are all parts of your business equal? Or should we be playing favorites? Are we lumping everything together? Or are we actually segmenting our campaigns out and orienting ourselves around the profit we make off of each? Can you focus your advertising efforts to be the little fish or the big fish in a little pond and really dominate the market, or do you have to go big? And depending on your answers, you may need to use some filters. One filter that's incredibly powerful is ad scheduling. Some people call it day parting, it's ad scheduling. And so in this example, one of my clients had their best CPA, their best cost per acquisition, the most conversions on Saturday, and had almost nothing on Wednesday. While it is true, they did want to keep their advertising going throughout the week to maintain that brand equity, it did not make sense to budget or to have their schedules run every single day of the week 24/7. You really do want to make sure that your budget is only serving when your best prospects, your best targets are searching. We also want to be mindful of location. Different locations have different auction prices. And never mind the fact that different locations are going to have different ways of people search. So for example, soda versus pop. When you have different affluence levels, different supply and demand, the budget that was going to give you all of the leads and completely support your conversion rate suddenly gets choked up on these really expensive clicks. We also want to be mindful that different ways of searching, just like we talked about different affluence levels, will actually yield cheaper or more expensive clicks. So in this example, rigging, hands down, cheaper and higher conversion rate than, say, machinery movers. And even when we started to look at the different match types or how Google will actually take the keyword that is entering you into the auction and matching you to the query, rigging still won. And so your ability to generate leads, your ability to generate profit is directly tied to how you target, when you target, and the keywords that you allow to live within your ad groups. A final note about keywords. Broad keywords, even if they're on restrictive match types, like say phrase match or modified broad, if they are not specifically calling out certain intentions or you're not setting those negatives, it is possible for you to spend up to double on certain terms. So in this example, dog rehabilitation, we were bidding $3.99 as our max cost per click. The average cost per click was $2.96. But that cruciate ligament surgery dog rehabilitation, which 100% was kosher to match, was more than double. Not a good fit. So when you optimize for these things, when you pull those levers, AdWords can usually be included in those initial touch plans. But sometimes that initial bid is just too high. There is just no way to make it work. But there is. It's called a matchmaker. So remarketing, both remarketing lists for search ads and customer match using customer emails can help bring the love together between expensive industries and low budgets. So a thing to bear in mind, RLSA, or remarketing list for search ads, and customer match will allow you to either target the folks specifically or will let you bid more or less aggressively. You also can begin to weight certain interactions and certain conversions based off of those audiences. And it is worth noting that the average user takes 3.58 or 3.58 exposures to act. And so we may need to make a little bit of an introduction. We may need to use a little bit of a Yenta service or a matchmaker service. So let's meet that first Yenta, or the first enabler, display. So this is probably the most common thing I see and that our team sees when a customer comes on to WordStream, which is that they have what's called search with display select on. And what that means is that Google is going to take your beautiful text ad that you worked so hard to make sure to capture that transactional intent, plop it into a display spot. But it's not going to create the display around it. It's just going to put the text there. Now, that's all well and good, but here's the problem. The mechanics and metrics of search and display are drastically different. So when your average cost per clicks, or the average that you pay every time that user engages with your ad is higher on search, but the value you get off of them, i.e. that they actually pay you money, become a customer, fill out your form, whatever they're doing, actually happens on search. Whereas display is very good at capturing people back, putting people into the sales funnel to actually begin to be remarketed to. There's a strategic mismatch there. But Google's not going to know that. Google's just going to put your budget where it can get you clicks and where it can achieve data. So it's very important to honor display strategic autonomy and not try to lump it together with search. But in honoring display strategic autonomy, it's also important to remember that display is not just for remarketing. It can blitz very powerfully. So I want to kind of draw your attention to a study that we pulled. This was across 4,000 WordStream accounts. We made sure that there was no budget over $50 a day and no budget under $1. So of these accounts, we saw on the average that the budget for $16.54 a day yielded for the month 168,550 impressions and 701 clicks. That is an incredibly, incredibly powerful way to boost your remarketing, to put people into potentially branded campaigns, and not have to pay the premium for search right off the bat. Sorry, touched my GoToMeeting. But friends don't let friends party with display without a game plan. This is actually very, very important. First, we want to make sure that we're excluding those mobile apps. We want to make sure that we check the placements for brand integrity. We want to make sure that our placements are also cost effective. And we have our remarketing placed before we start the display campaign. Now, WordStream has actually been making a very big push in helping with display. And so on top of being able to help you track all of your conversions via WordStream Easy Tracking, which will track for AdWords, Bing, display, Facebook, and even a little bit of that remarketing, we also now do have that ability to help you with your audiences. So we're now going to look at Bing because no one ever gives Chris Evans enough attention. And the reason why Bing works and the reason why Bing should be part of your marketing plan is because the rules of engagement are fairly similar between Bing and AdWords. And Bing knows that it's second fiddle. It makes it so easy to get started. You just have to click import. And you actually can set up auto imports to make sure that your Bing and your AdWords are constantly staying optimized. Now, there are some rules of engagement that are different. One is that in Bing, ad group level location, schedule, and audiences can come into play. With AdWords, your schedule, your location targeting, that's all at the campaign level. So you do have a little bit more control at the ad group level. In addition, AdWords or Google did away with the right-hand side of the search result page. Bing still has it. So for those of you that know that you'll never really be able, even on Bing, to bid for those top positions, have no fear. Position 4, 5, 6 is still above the fold. And there is no unknown. So unknowns can be kind of scary. Bing doesn't have an unknown. You just can't completely exclude certain devices, certain demographics. On the import, not all bidding strategies carry over, so we want to make sure that we're bidding to rank. We want to make sure that we have a schedule, knowing that the ad schedule serves in the time zone of the user rather than the account, that we're not over-serving or under-serving our ads. And certain extensions do need to be set up manually within Bing, including location extensions. So just do a quick extension audit to make sure that they're set up correctly. A note about all of the networks other than search, but Bing particularly. Bing, Facebook, display, all can empower your branded traffic to have a much greater impact. And so when you think about Bing, it's not just about the conversions you get within Bing, it's about ensuring that your search, your overall spend, your overall marketing budget is achieving all that it can. And finally, it is a lot easier to own 90+% impression share, i.e. of all available impressions. How many are you serving for on Bing than AdWords. So where AdWords, it gets super competitive, on Bing, you still have time and the opportunity to own that market. So Facebook is going to take us into uncharted territory because ad sets, not the campaign, are where all of that strategic control live. And so when we think about ad sets, when we think about setting them up, it's really important to bear in mind both audiences and creative. So because Facebook charges in CPM, or cost per milli, the most strategic energy should be focused on the copy. I cannot impress upon you enough, don't start with display ads and put them into Facebook. If you're going to kind of reuse copy, I would actually do it the other way around. Because in Facebook, you really need to resonate with the user. You really need to have that powerful message. Not a good idea to reuse a display ad where the focus was really just to get them click the button or kind of just be there. With Facebook, you really do want to engage the user with that image. Now, I want to show you something interesting with audiences. So I have this amazing client, the facility, that they're out of Boca Raton. They're going to be our case study later on. So in one instance, we targeted pretty much everybody. Yes, we had those locations set. Yes, we kind of targeted all of the different demographics, but from an audience targeting perspective with a low budget, it was too broad. And if you are working with $500 or less, that budget will get eaten alive if we don't ground it in at least some degree of audience, whether it's a lookalike of your existing customers, whether it's lookalikes of your fans, whether it's remarketing, have at least some degree of audience. So we added in lookalikes of existing customers, and you'll actually notice that we had less of the interest, but it was specifically giving it that audience. We also ensured that instead of it being a wider age range, we honed in on that 40 to 65. And there were big differences. So we actually used the same exact copy. When we added that audience in, 19 conversions versus 0, 2,200 impressions versus 38, and 76 clicks versus 179. So you'll notice that there was less clicks, but they were valuable. It was less volume, but we got what we needed out of the marketing spend. So another note on Facebook, make sure that we have at least one location target. You ideally want to be more focused than the entire country, but I mean, at least target one location. The other thing that to bear in mind with Facebook, and we'll actually calculate this for you, if your average cost per click starts to rise, that's a really good sign that your copy has been friend zoned, that it's not as engaging to the users, or that Facebook itself has kind of gotten bored with it. And you really do want to make sure that you're always treating Facebook as give it something new. And for those of you that have lately gotten hit with the disapprovals on policy, Facebook is a safe haven for a lot of the kind of risky industries where either whether it's content or whether it's editorial practices, whatever it might be, Facebook is really truly a safe haven. So we need our lovelies to play nicely together. We've explored kind of how to make the most out of AdWords, Bing, Facebook, display, but as Deadpool said, and this is true, when ordering ice cream, we want all 3 scoops with pine nuts on top, because it's not about going in and getting a single lonely scoop and then feeling disappointed when it's gone. It's about getting a cohesive sundae of profit. So I want to share with you now the story of the facility. And it truly is a great story of a small business rolling up their sleeves, getting things done, but getting it done smartly. So with the facility, we focused our optimization efforts on their prime prospects, not kind of tangential folks. So focusing on people where it was easy for them to get to the gym, focusing on folks where it was exactly within their wheelhouse. We launched a Facebook lead campaign, which allowed for branding and acquisition. So you actually, with the leads, within Facebook will actually work right within WordStream, so you don't have that manual setup. And we did supplement our search campaign on AdWords with a Bing campaign, which bolstered the branding. So as a benchmark, the spend was a little under $1,900 with just AdWords in a month. We had 26,937 impressions, 473 clicks. Average cost per click was $3.99. Our conversion rate was 3.59%, and our cost per acquisition was $110.88. When we went through, leveraged those different networks, optimized and used those levers, we got the spend down between AdWords, Bing, and Facebook to $1,400 a month. Our impressions were about 4,700. Clicks 356, so less impressions than clicks, but our average cost per click was 381, and our conversion rate jumped up to 11% with a cost per acquisition of 46.82. So it's not about having high volume, it's about meeting the right people and leveraging every network, leveraging every Chris to help you achieve your profit. Now, I totally understand that for those of you that are B2B or business to business out there, that it can be like, well, I can't do low budget, I'm B2B, everything costs everything. I'm here to tell you that's not true. We just need to leverage the right tools. So I want to tell you now the story of A&A Machinery. And so A&A Machinery came to us, and they had some structural issues that we had to work through. So the main items that we pursued is we segmented a giant campaign into micro campaigns focused on specific locations, their main hubs of customers where they made the most money. We audited each location for how users searched, paused the variations that were driving up spend. We imported that successful campaign into Bing to allow for further location targeting, and we ran a Facebook lookalike so that our services, let me just move this, sorry, lookalike on campaigns on services that were too expensive to achieve on search, because it is when search is too prohibitively expensive and you can leverage display in Facebook to supplement that. And so in doing so, we were able to go from almost $2,800 on AdWords down to $357.78. Our impressions went from 14,041 down to 1,537. We had 435 clicks to 74. Our average cost per click went from 627 to 544. This is where it matters. The conversion rate at 1.61 to 32.43. And our cost per acquisition changed from 389.49 to 1491. So the reason I pulled this story, and the reason why, for those of you that are B2B, I want you to take heart. A lot of times we get pressured into bidding on terms or to appearing on search result pages that are genuinely not relevant to our business. And I am here to challenge you to say, no. The only thing that gets access to my budget are things that I can directly tie to profit. So know that it is possible in the B2B context to achieve success. So, and they did grow their spend, but that's okay, because when you have a machine that works and it's generating successful leads, you want to spend the money, because when you spend the money, that means you're getting more profit in, you have more business, you have more growth. And it is important that we grow scalably, and we want to have that loving relationship. So kind of going back, and I realize this isn't as long as these two up here, but when I began telling you how my husband and I together, we met on Valentine's Day, this is our seven-year anniversary, and we just bought a home. So like, it's all about taking those steps that are happy and healthy so that you grow scalably. So we're going to go on a date with profit. Action item number 1 for you: audit all networks for auction prices that could be running away with your budget. Action item number 2: build in remarketing lists so your ad spend can empower itself rather than live in a vacuum. Action item number 3: audit your copy for each stage of things like. Action item number 4: conduct an honest audit of your business's profit centers, lead values, and growth trajectories, and not have disputes about which one is more awesome. We need to be honest with ourselves. And action item number 5: create criteria for campaigns that account for growth. And don't be afraid to take your relationship with your budget to the next level. And so with that, we'll tell you about a very special offer and answer some questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nava. That was absolutely excellent. Um, like Nava just mentioned, we're about to get into our question and answers. We had a lot of great questions throughout the presentation, so thanks so much for those. Um, while we do get to those questions, going to launch a special offer here on the screen, and you all can choose which applies to you. We have a whole team of experts here at WordStream, just like Nava, who are really diligent in analyzing specific accounts and all these different aspects that Nava talked about. We can let you know how you can do them with your budget and your campaigns for your audiences. So go ahead and select if you'd like to connect with someone on our team and they can talk specifically about your account. And while you're doing that, I will take these questions to Nava. Okay, Nava. So first question that came in right at the start was, okay, all these networks sound so great. If I haven't gotten started yet, which network should I start with?
So that's a great question. I would say that it greatly depends on what the budget that you're working with is and what your time to manage is. So I think if you're starting with a low budget, low time to management, Facebook and display are likely a good fit for you because both are as easy as plopping in your website. Tools like WordStream can then help you craft that ad copy. You can target it, and from just a management perspective, there's not as much to do in terms of getting it set up. If you have a little bit more time, a little bit more budget, I think AdWords is a really good fit. Start with maybe one campaign focusing on your best products and services. Um, but I definitely think that if you have nothing set, Facebook, if you have some degree of budget, search is where you will get those transactional users.
Awesome. Another question that came up. So I know you spent some time talking about B2B businesses and how they can certainly see profits. We had one person online who's still hesitant. They're marketing B2B and they're curious, is Facebook really worth it for them?
So it is 100% worth it. Where B2B companies tend to fall down on Facebook is that they treat Facebook like it's search. So they'll inundate the placements or they'll inundate the ads with the text or with the messaging that they really should have used, say, for a search campaign or for an email marketing campaign. Facebook's best use case with B2B is honestly in generating those either top of funnel users, so getting people in so that you can then remarket to them through search, and or leveraging it for connects where you know you'll be. So for example, whether it's a webinar, whether it's a conference, kind of reminding people that you will be there. Really good way to have creative messaging that will be cheaper than marketing to people through search.
Got ya. Um, Another question. This is again budget focus. I'm not sure. It's kind of a vague question. I don't know if it has an answer, Nava. But someone on the line wants to know, what would you consider a low budget in each of these platforms?
So it really does depend on your industry. I will tell you that when I see a campaign on search where it's less than $500, that really, I will actually sometimes consider telling the person to not advertise on search and move that budget either to Bing or to Facebook because their ability to actually make money is so greatly limited because they're not going to be able to afford enough clicks to trigger their conversion rate in a profitable way. When I see a campaign on Facebook that's say like $1 a day or $2 a day, which isn't really reasonable, my question then becomes, what are we looking to achieve? If what we're looking to achieve is just a quick brand awareness blitz, fine, great. But typically when you're marketing, you want to generate sales, you want to generate leads. And so when you set your budgets up, a really healthy way of thinking about your budget is what is the average cost per click, multiply that by 10. And if your budget cannot meet that, or like just from a pragmatic standpoint, we then need to look at, okay, maybe how many days are we advertising, or when are we advertising, or what locations are we advertising, just to make sure that we can at least get enough clicks, enough prospects so that our marketing spend is valuable.
Great. Another question, and you were just talking about CPCs a little bit. Someone on the webinar said their industry, they just have crazy, crazy high CPCs everywhere. Any advice? What can they do?
So I love this question because every time someone says that the average CPCs are silly high and like there's just no way around it, my answer is close variance. So Google and Bing actually rolled out this thing called close variance, where they're actually smart enough to know that singular, plural, slight misspellings, one word being turned into two words being turned into one word, are all effectively the same. So if the keywords that you're bidding on are where everyone else is bidding, find a variant, because it will still give you access to the auction. You'll still be eligible to serve on the search result page. You just won't be dragged into auctions that you don't want to bid on. In addition, you may also want to look at some very long tail broad match keywords, because broad match keywords tend to be, from an auction price standpoint, cheaper. And if you go long tail enough, and when I say long tail, I mean at least 6 words plus, you might be able to maintain the relevancy that you need while gaining access to those cheaper auction prices that mod, broad, and phrase may be too expensive.
Great. Awesome. All right. Well, we're cutting it close here on time. So that's just about all the questions that we'll get to for today. Again, thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you to Nava for all of your insight. We hope that there was something for everybody on this webinar. Like Nava mentioned at the beginning, WordStream is really well known for our thought leadership. So definitely check out our website. We've got loads of free tools for you all. I know 70% of you are advertising on AdWords search, so you all need to check out our AdWords Performance Grader. It's our best free tool. It takes 60 seconds, and you'll get a comprehensive report on your specific account data. Again, that's our AdWords Performance Grader. Go check it out if you haven't yet. And for the rest of you who aren't on AdWords yet, you can head to our website and learn everything about getting started. So thank you all again. Keep an eye on your inbox within the next 48 hours or so, and you'll get our recording as well as today's slide deck. And we hope to see you on a future webinar. Bye all.